Today marks 1742nd day of the lessons, the reflections. And today I speak about sharing about yourself and what it does to other people because I was thinking about that some people are very great to connect with others. And I was thinking why some people are such a great connectors. And I realized there is a different way to share things. One thing that you can share is that the things that other person is able to do, but without sharing about yourself. And that means that I think that sometimes creates resistance because you don't want to be taught. And I think that's people want to be inspired. For example, one of the things that I did was I went to swimming, and I went to swimming because I was inspired by the person who's going to swimming. He never told me to go to a swim, but because he I saw him doing, and that inspired me to go for a swim in the ocean as well. And I think that's the beautiful thing that so many times we're able to really inspire people, not by teaching other people, but really by sharing about what we going through, what we do, what we struggle with. And by sharing that, we're able to really make a difference in other people's lives because I share every single day a lesson. But sometimes it's a teaching. And teaching that really creates resistance. And I really want to reflect today about the topic of really describing yourself, really speaking about yourself, and really making a difference in other people's life. And this is not a teaching. This is just reflection because I know that I could be better in that as well. Because sometimes I used to share the lesson that I speak directly about myself, but I do a teaching as I speak about something else. And I think that doesn't connect as much because I used to be afraid of speaking about myself, afraid about sharing about my struggles, but not me anymore. So number one is the people project themselves into every story that they hear. People project themselves into every story that they hear. It's interesting because when you watch a movie, you're right away to connect with some certain character and you put yourself in their shoes. I think maybe not every single person does, but I truly believe that a majority of people put themselves in other person's shoes, especially if they enjoy that. Maybe they connect, or maybe even they see the other person who is struggling with some certain thing, and they see themselves in that. That means that it might be that the person is sharing five different struggles, and it was a trade, it lost money, it lost something. So that means that five different people will connect with that message because five different people was struggling with different things. And that's why like there's potentially be one person sharing one message for different stories and five different people will connect with different stories. And it's because when we experience things, now we're able to resonate with different stories. Oh, I experienced exactly what you I know exactly what you're talking about because that's what I experienced. Number two, specific honesty often feels more universal than general advice. And it's interesting because my YouTube channel is a lot of times very, very, very general. And I think that sometimes that was wrong because I used to have very specific um, encounters, specific mistakes, specific thing that really happened to me, but I used to generalize that specific thing. And I think that was a mistake because we able by ourselves really choose specific and then generalize. But when I generalize that, it's very hard sometimes to really go back into specific information. So, for example, you have some kind of mistake at work or in business or at relationships, and now you say that when you make mistake, that's what happens. And maybe rather than sharing that you made mistake and what you're supposed to do with mistake, maybe you can share exactly what happened and then be able to reflect and every single person is able to really say okay what did I realize from this story, what did I learn from this mistake, because every single person will take a little bit different things and that's a beautiful thing because we take what we need because as I said when you eat chicken or eat a fish you eat the meat and throw out the bones, you eat the meat and throw out the bones, and different things will be for different people. Number three, people trust scars more than lectures. And again, this is part of me learning about myself, about communication, about how to share, what to share. And sometimes I get disappointed, I got discouraged, and I don't share that. And I think that those are the scars. and rather that I write a lecture around that, lecture around that mistake. And I think that that's the beautiful thing when you're able to really share the scar and what you learn and what you developed, is really including a story, because people connect with stories, not lectures. Stories really embark or include the emotion. Lectures doesn't ignite emotions. Stories do that. And when you think about learning the best and remember lessons, because I remember that I was listening about memory, and one of the biggest things that if you really want to remember something, you need to attach emotion to it. So if you have a lecture but there's no emotion there, that means that you will not connect, you will not remember that lecture. It will one ear in, one ear out. I think that stories again. This is what I learn right now, and while I'm speaking, I'm understanding that why it's so important is to share your story, because your story ignite the emotion that really allows people to memory memorize the lesson, or something, or remember what you need to um, remember their own mistakes and remember that they need to learn. Number four, your story gives people permission to admit their own. And this is, I really love that your story gives permission to admit their own. Because when you really want to show up as perfect, and that's what they did for a long time alive, because, and this is partly was that I had the belief deep down, even though I didn't understand that I had not enough. And then when you don't enough, you don't want to show not enoughness. You don't want to show imperfections, because that really proves that you're not enough. But when you have belief and understanding that you are enough, when you're worthy, when you are a person who really develops and becomes every day better, I think that at that moment you're able to really share things much more honestly. And when you share honestly your struggles, people could admit to themselves that they are struggling with something as well. Maybe, maybe in one year of life, maybe in other year of life. But when you share that you struggling with something, that gives permission that, yeah, I struggle with that as well. And I think that's the beautiful thing, that we're able to give permission to express to ourselves on this, that we are struggling with something as well. Number five, the less you try to convince people, the more convincing you become. It's a beautiful thing, especially in sales. I think that when you really start to really connect with people, because and learn about people, not because you want to sell something, but because you really want to understand what people truly need. At that moment, you become convincing. And it's interesting that that's again the contradiction. The less you focus on selling, the more you will sell. The less you try to convince, the more convincing you become. And I think this is, ironically, it is that sometimes the more you push away, the more they cling on. And I think that's a beautiful thing when we're able to really learn how to really focus on speaking more about ourselves and really be interested in other people. Because when we are trying to be interesting, that is all about convincing. But when you try to be interested in, that's when people become convinced. And I think that's a beautiful thing. Number six, people remember how your story made them examine themselves, not details of your story. It's interesting that's a very beautiful sentence. That is that when you share a story, some people will forget your story, but they will remember what they learn from your story. And that's the beautiful thing, that oh, I remember that you shared the story, and that story remind me my experience, my mistake, my struggle, my learning, my understanding. And this is a beautiful thing when you're able to look into someone else, hear their story, appreciate the story, but then that story connects with deeper you, and then it's awakens something inside of us. And because of that, that's that you say, oh, such a beautiful story, because that story allowed to awaken things in my life. That's a beautiful thing. Number seven, and the last thing is that when people when people think you are talking about them, it's often because truth has no owner. That means interesting when other people speak and they speak just purely about themselves. But it seems that they're speaking directly to you. I don't know if you experience, but like I have experienced so many times when people speak who are great communicators, they seems they directly speak to you, directly to your soul, because sometimes they share truths that almost every single person experience. Like that means fear, shame, regret, healing, recovery, forgiveness, growth. And when they speak about those stories and they share how they grew, how they forgave, how they healed, how they recovered, it connects and it seems that they are speaking directly to you. And I think it's a beautiful thing. And again, this is partly why it's so important is to share personal struggle that people could really connect and say like, yeah, this is where I come into the play. This is where I see myself in. And that's again is a beautiful, beautiful thing. The last thing that I want to mention is that the more personal your truth becomes, the more universal it becomes. The more personal it becomes, the more universal. Such a, again, seems like contradiction. The more personal, the more universal. Because I think that it's a beautiful thing that majority of things that we struggle with are almost exactly identical things. And I think that one of my biggest mistakes was that I never shared too much about myself. Maybe that's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing, but I think that I will need to learn how to share stories as well. This is again one thing that I will need to really learn to develop the skill set of sharing stories, and that will be my thing that will be working in the future. That's definitely. So I hope you choose to win and see you tomorrow.